Welcome to Heart of the Lion. My name is Anthony Hart. I had a conversation with a person and brought something up. So my journey through spirituality over the last 17 years, I put a lot of work into it, needed a lot of healing. I was almost like willing to sacrifice my life for it. Like, whatever, if I die doing this, it is what it is. And part of that was fueled by a place in me that hadn't been healed yet, where I was feeling like I was expendable, I was disposable because I wasn't worthy. And my healing journey of understanding how to love myself, how to appreciate myself, how to give myself the things that I deserved, like my time and my attention and my authority and my vision, to apply to myself the things that I would be willing to apply to others, but I wasn't willing to give myself that love, that time, that attention, that discipline to help myself out of a situation. And so that was a part of me that needed to be healed. And I didn't see it right away. It was good to learn to love myself and appreciate myself and give myself the things along the way to reprogram my understanding of the world so that I could be a better person, so that I could fulfill my destiny, my truth, what was there for me to fulfill in this life, and to become a better person, a person that took better care of myself. And so at first in the healing journey, I didn't see that I was so willing to go on this healing spiritual journey because it didn't even matter if I died or not. It didn't matter if I sacrificed my life for this. And part of the reason that I thought that was because I was undervaluing myself to some degree. And that doesn't mean that now that I value myself, I wouldn't go again into spirituality, that I wouldn't go again and try to heal different places that I still have going on within myself. But I would have come at it from a different vantage point, from a different viewpoint, from a greater level of self-worth. And I see people throwing themselves at causes, sacrificing themselves. It's not always this way. There are plenty of things going on in the human psyche and cultures and the way we interact with the world. But there is a portion of the population that is willing to sacrifice themselves for a cause because of disbelief that there is self-worth. And I want to talk now about where I saw this little piece. To me, I could see it in the person's eyes when I spoke to them. They were purporting the best thing they did in their field was educating white people on how they have privilege and bringing them down. And this person was white, and I saw just a little bit of the self-hatred in there, where they have traumas from their childhood where they hated themselves, and just as I've had in my life, traumas where I thought I hated myself. I literally hated myself. And then we use that perception of ourself as part of the way that we interact with the world. And this person hated themselves. I could just see a little bit of hate in themselves. They unhealed traumas from whatever they've been through, and the hate in themselves, coupled with this rhetoric about white people being oppressors. And it's almost like it's an excuse to throw themselves under the bus, to sacrifice themselves, where they're trying to educate their people about how they're terrible oppressors. But they're lashing themselves with it. They're saying white people are these horrible people, and they're they're using that as an excuse to continue hating themselves, to continue degrading themselves, because that's where they feel naturally at home, is in this degraded place because of the traumas, whatever things they went through as a child, whatever things they went through in their life, breakups and all kinds of things with kids, all kinds of things that you couldn't even imagine. They've gone through these things and they've wounded them and they feel low about themselves. There's an ideology that they use to purport hate upon themselves and then bring hate out into the world against other people. And it's all because the wounds of them hating themselves from whatever trauma they went through, from whatever awful things happened that they can't forgive in others and they can't forgive in themselves, then they go out and bring hate into the world. And that's the same thing that happens with people who have been traumatized. They feel the trauma and then they go out and try and traumatize other people. And that's how these types of things start to spread. And I was just having this conversation with this person and I saw this aspect like, wow, man, that's so crazy. Like, this person desperately wants to be a good person, but they have that hate from their traumas for themselves. And now they've found an arsenal, tool, a banner that they can stand behind and feel part of something and feel like they belong to something. And the reason they feel like they belong to something is because it puts them in the place that they feel most comfortable with. And that most comfortable place is the place that they were raised in, or the place that of the traumas that occurred to them. And instead of getting up and getting out and fixing those things, they just stay in that place because it's comfortable. This is why they talk about religion as being the opiate of the masses. I don't think that religion is a bad thing. I think religion, in fact, is a good thing. But I think, like everything else in this world, religion gets co-opted by people who are nefarious. Just like politics, just like business, just like militaries, just like all neighborhood communities, everything you could imagine. The light and the dark of humanity is in each and every single human being. And the ability to do harm and to do great good lies in every single human on the planet. And so we can be subtly drawn into either direction with everything that we do. In any field that we inhabit. There's no field that escapes the terrors of humanity and the greatness of humanity. Every human has it, and it can exhibit itself in science. Terrors can be created, and also amazing miracles can be created with science. The same is true for politics, leadership, militaries, strength. Every kind of imaginable human endeavor can be drawn into the darkness or drawn into the light. There isn't a human endeavor that's void of the ability to be drawn into that. All spiritual faiths, all religions, all tribes, all leaderships, all everything, all communities of inventors, thinkers, scientists, all kinds of different people. Everything can be drawn into the lightness and into the dark. And there's this notion that somehow one of these communities somehow lies above that science can't be drawn into it, or religion can't be drawn into it, or spirituality can't be drawn into it, or politics can't be drawn into it, and nothing could be further from the truth. The truth is that lightness and that dark is in all of humanity. And I think it makes us, a lot of times we come from one or the other tradition or community or way of thinking, and maybe some of that's where our traumas occurred, in that community, in that way of thinking, in that society, in that group. And those traumas happened and we got injured. And so then we think, okay, if that happened here, then if I go over there, it won't happen. It can't happen here because over here it happened because they were thinking and working with this kind of way of thinking and being in the world. And if I go over here where they have a totally different way of thinking and a totally different way of being and a totally different goal, then it can't be drawn into that terrible negativity. And that's just naiveness. That's just, and it, we have to learn about these things on our own. Like, experience is the king. Like, you have to be able to experience these things and make your mistakes and learn it through time. But by talking about it here, hopefully you can know a little bit more than I knew when I got into things, when I was on my journey. And anyway, so they think they can just jump into this other way of thinking, this other way of being, this other type of community, and that lightness and that darkness don't exist there. And that is not true whatsoever. That lightness and darkness is in every single one of us. And I know people have a hard time. They don't want to look at the possibility that they could do any harm. But that is just being scared to recognize the reality within yourself. And that's okay, Everybody has to come around in their own time. That harm and that greatness exist within all of us, and it's possible within all communities. And we like to get behind those banners, because behind those banners, we feel like, oh, we're safe finally. Over here, it was so terrible. And now I'm over here and it's totally different. And it could never be terrible. And now I can just relax, rest on my laurels. Oh, I'm safe. I'm safe from all the things that cause me trauma. But that's not true. Those terrible things, those things that cause trauma, exist as a possibility within everyone and every single type of community. And eventually, spending enough time in a community, if you spend 20, 30, 40 years, 50, 60 years with a group, with this type of society, with a type of culture, you will start to see the dark and the light both exist in the people that work with that culture, that work with that ideology, that way of thinking, that way of interacting with the world. And so it's a little bit sad, I feel like the whole woke thing is a play on people's emotions. It's a predatory behavior of groups to prey on people's better sense of compassion. In the same way that religious corruption or spiritual faith corruption is also a preying on those who have a better sensibility about being a good person and having compassion and empathy and caring for the world and caring for the people and caring for each other. And unfortunately, humans are involved in all of this, and they are fallible, and it is possible for people that are leading or running those organizations or disseminating information to be in a way that it's trying to manipulate. And the woke people don't understand that it's part of it's a religion at this point. It's a cult, and it's preying upon people who have compassion. It's a predatory thing, and it's perpetrated by hate for white, which is the same as hate for brown. Instead of saying that word, I might opt out of saying this word because maybe it's not supposed to be there. 8 for white people or 8 for brown. It's the same thing. 8 is 8. And 8 for brown is the same as 8 for white. You're coming from the same place inside you to have 8. Instead of having 8, you could have love. And if love was the thing, then there would be no need to pull down white people or any other type of people in order to make yourself feel good. In order to make another group come up, you don't have to pull down another group. And I guess there can be some arguments. I'm not trying to pull down any of these groups. I think religion is beautiful. It's powerful. And it's an amazing thing, and we need it in this world. I think spirituality is amazing and beautiful. It's a powerful thing, and we need it in this world. I think science is amazing and beautiful, the marvels we've created, and we need it in this world. I think leadership, which to some degree involves some kind of politic, is beautiful, and we need it in this world. I think that, tribes are beautiful. Tribes of people, communities of people, societies and cultures that are succinct in a way, in a style that suits them, are needed, and they're beautiful. But none of those things are devoid of the element of human lightness and human darkness. And there's another little aspect that's in there. It's a little aspect because when your perpetrators, the people who traumatized you, they stood for this. When you go in the opposite direction and stand for that, it's a little bit of a FU to the people who gave you the trauma. So part of what this, part of when people go in the opposite direction, they have a little hate for themselves. They stand under these banners. It's a way of getting back at the other person to some small degree. Obviously, there's a bunch of other things at play. There's a bunch of other things going on. But anyways, I just wanted to talk about these things, bring them into the light of the day. And I guess what is my message? If I had a message out there, learn to love and appreciate yourself. Learn to value yourself. You are worthy. If God didn't want you, you would be gone. The fact that you're here means that God wants you. God wants you. God wants you here. You're precious and you're beautiful. And I know there's a lot of stuff on the internet. It's like, you're not precious. You're not a snowflake. You're not special. And there is a place where we can learn from that humility to become one with everything. It's beautiful, and there's a need for that. But there's also a place where it's needed, where you say, I love you. You're beautiful. I appreciate you. You're worthy. And you can say that to yourself. I love you. I appreciate you. You're beautiful and you're worthy. And you can mean it. Not just lip service of saying the words, but really mean it. Feel it inside of your heart. And both of these things are medicine. In fact, there's a great herbalist thing that says, what is the difference between medicine and poison as far as like plant medicine? If you're making a tea or you're making some herbs, what is the difference between medicine and poison? And the difference is dose. Too much of the wrong thing at the wrong time is poison. Just the right amount of that same thing at the right time is medicine. And so the same is true here. There's plenty of ways where we need to become humble and recognize that we're the same as everybody else. We have the capacity for light and dark just like everybody else, and that will help us and grow us. And there's also a place where we need to tell ourselves, I love you and I appreciate you, especially if you have some traumas in the past and that type of thing hasn't been around you a bunch. You need some of that. I love you. You're beautiful. I appreciate you. You can do this, and I believe in you. These types of things are definitely super healthy. And obviously, you have too much of one in the wrong direction at the wrong time with the wrong personality and the wrong person. Sure, it's not the right thing. But these things are needed to love ourselves, to appreciate ourselves, especially so we don't become the trauma creators, so we don't become the perpetrators of trauma. We know what it's like to have gone through a challenge, to have gone through something where somebody was unfair. And now we want to be unfair? No. We want to learn to move past that we can do something better, more powerful, more beautiful, more connected, more whole unto ourselves. More loving, more embracing of all the wonderful things of life. And we can go out there in the world and create something beautiful and good. Or we can follow the same path as the people that created our trauma by going out and creating more harm, more trauma in this world. I say these things so that you can do something beautiful. That I can remember to do something beautiful in this world, to do something powerful, to do something good for people. Instead of just creating all the pain and misery that was back in the past, I can create something good. And it starts with the self. It starts with loving yourself. You must learn to love yourself. And then when you love yourself, the level at which you can love others rises. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear that. They don't want to hear, if I don't love myself, then I can only love others to a certain degree. They don't want to hear that. But they don't want to hear that because they don't want to do the hard work of learning what that means to love yourself. To love yourself is to take care of yourself. You wouldn't let somebody you care about waste away and eat themselves to death. You would say, hey, man, get up and go on with a walk for me. Let's go do something. You would try to help them better themselves. And the same is true for yourself. You can't let yourself do that either. And if you really love yourself, you won't let yourself fall into that hole. You'll pick yourself up. Or if you do let yourself fall in that hole, you'll go down there and pick yourself up and bring yourself all the way back up. That's what you would do for somebody you love, and you have to learn to do that for yourself. And you can do that for yourself. I'm living proof of that. I wish you guys all the best. So wonderful to talk to you guys, to see you guys again. God bless you all, and we'll see you in the next one.